Though with some of those patellofemoral joints, if you've taped from that McConnell perspective before, where we're sort of saying, excuse me, you know, that the patella is sort of tracking laterally and you're trying to put a resistive force in to resist it from tracking laterally so much. Now, we're not going to try and hold it there. Again, with this, the whole idea is not to hold anything, but we can put a force into that medial direction, which means overall you need a greater force for it to track laterally, okay? I look at these very pragmatically. I do it, if somebody does a step up or a small knee bend or whatever it is and it's painful, if I can put a medially directed force in manually and they do that and it's a lot better, then it makes sense to try and mimic it with the tape. If I do that and it's no better or it's worse, then there's no point trying to mimic it with the tape, right? So what we're going to do is act like a slingshot basically, and we're going to sling around the patella so that there's going to be a resultant force vector medially to resist it coming laterally. Okay, so it's like your slingshot. If I start medially and finish medially, it's going to give me a force going that direction. Does that make sense? If you put your finger up there for me. So if I start medially, sweep around, finish medially, for his finger to come this way, he's got to put through resistance. Okay, there's a force vector going that way. If I do this, he can push a lot further before he hits any resistance. So when you do these techniques, you've really got to try and get as much medial direction as you can to maximise your medial force vector. Okay. The other part of this, if you think back to that or the fundamentals of crossing a joint short position but getting purchase on the lever, that's the hard thing with these, is hooking onto that patella to actually create a genuine resistance to motion. Okay, some people you'll find you can do it quite easily, others it's a little bit more difficult. So let's have a go at it. And again, you can do this in a couple of different ways. I'll do one with the wide tape, the 3-inch one here, which is nice. And this is very nice for lifting up and unloading that fat pad, which might account for the really nice pain relieving effects we see with it. But I'll show you how to do it with a single, with a 3-inch, and I'll also show you how to do it with a 2-inch. Don't try and do this technique with a 2-inch because you don't have enough width in tape to give you either force or hook around that patella. Okay, it just doesn't really work. Okay, so make sure also that you cut this far enough up and you start far enough up the leg. If you don't cut it far enough, you end up having a lot of difficulty getting around the angles. So make sure you cut it well up. And you want to start on your VM or your adductors, so you're starting medially. And you want one aiming towards your medial side, one aiming towards the lateral side. So this one on the lateral side is going to sweep around and finish medially to give me that medial force vector. This one is not going to touch the patella, because if this one starts pushing on there, that's going to push it laterally. That's going to counteract the force going medially from the other strip. So this one is purely to come around and lift up and unload this fat pad. Okay. In the end, you sort of create a loop that gives you a sort of a superomedial force vector. Okay. So the way we do it, the handling is a bit tricky when you start out. I'm going to anchor with my finger, put my tension on. I'm going to do a medial glide with my thumb to make sure that I miss and don't push on that. I want to come off the patella, sweeping around. Keep your tension on so you can get around those corners and sweep around to lift up your fat pad. Then I've got to find my lateral edge, which in this case is way out here. I think I'm going to be a bit short on you. Way out there. So I've got to aim this for that lateral edge and finish medially. Okay, so I might actually be a bit short here. Anchor, come right down for your lateral edge. Glide the patella through the tape. Okay. Turn your fingers around and then finish this medially to get that medially directed force vector. When I push on here, I'm a bit high. See how the patella pops out underneath there? So I'm actually missing it a bit. I might be saved when you bend up. Okay, now it's caught in the patella, getting some genuine resistance on it. Most of their problems occur on a semi-flexed knee, so when they're slightly bent, so that's okay. That's why I say if you do this with a 2-inch, it's not broad enough to hook on the patella. It's often easier to do it with a 2 strips, slightly differently, but 2 strips with your 2-inch That way you've got a full width of 2 inch along there. It's easy to catch hold of it. Okay. But you'll see it boxes this up. If you come and stand up again for us.